Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Stevie Nicol here in the studio, and we also welcome Gab Marcotti to the show. A little later on, we'll be talking international football. But Gab, let's start with you. Manchester United made it official today. Zlatan Ibrahimovic has been released from the club, of course, at the end of his contract after that injury. So the question is, who will be brought in to replace him? According to reports in Spain, it will be Alvaro Morata.
Yeah, a tremendous amount of buzz here surrounding United wanting to get their business done early, and certainly with Morata in Spain, they're saying this is just about a done deal, that he's going to be there on Monday. Not quite the same confirmations on this end here in England. Some people also suggesting that this is all linked into some possible David De Gea deal, but certainly I think we have a very clear idea of almost some foreshadowing of what the type of striker Mourinho wants, somebody who can be a main striker, also be a second striker. He's not the only one. Of course, he's been linked with others too. And also possibly from Real Madrid's perspective, the notion that in shifting Morata, maybe they are clearing space for a real blockbuster centre forward signing up front. And obviously, they've been linked with Kylian Mbappe in the last few days as well.
Gab, how highly do you rate Morata?
I really, really like Morata. I think he's a very, very intelligent player. He's strong. He's athletic. Technically, he's good. He puts the team first. He's accepted this, obviously the role last season, coming off the bench, and was extremely productive on a per-minute basis. And I think on paper, at least, he fits what Mourinho wants to do very well. Remember, he's also had 2 years at Juventus in Serie A, working perhaps in a more tactical setting. He's shown he can do it abroad. He's cosmopolitan. He's handsome. He's saleable. I think it's a good fit.
One handsome man to another. Do you like him as much as Gab does?
I do, yes. Initially, when he came on the scene, I wasn't sure about his pace. But I'm completely sold now. I think this is a great signing for United. I mean, basically, it gives them an option up top of playing a different way. If they play Rashford, there's going to be space in behind. If they play Morata, then they can hold it up. I think this, not only for Manchester United, is a good signing, but it's a good move for him because there's no question he's going to play. And that's been his problem over the last, 2 or 3 seasons, not getting enough time on the field. At Manchester United, he absolutely will.
Any possibility that another club could come and hijack this deal, Gab?
There's always a possibility, but I think, again, when you're looking at those numbers for Morata, when you're talking, above that 60 million range, you can probably count on one hand the number of teams that can go and deal with it. The obvious candidate would have been Chelsea, because obviously they're in the market for a centre forward as well. But they're looking elsewhere right now with Lukaku. So I think United feel pretty confident that they have the option of landing this. Although, like I said, I haven't been able to confirm on this end that they actually have agreed terms with Real Madrid. Right now the big push is coming from the Spanish end.
Gab, you mentioned before that this could be one of 2 strikers coming into Old Trafford. The other one, Andrea Belotti, has been linked, of course, to a move to the Premier League as well.
Yeah, Belotti heavily linked. In some ways, he's very much a Mourinho-type signing in that he's one of those centre forwards who really is very, very high on work rate. He's been prolific at Torino. He gives everything he has. For me personally, I don't know what Stevie thinks, but I'm not sure about you really need to go and sign both of them, given that Rashford is still there. But that seems to be the direction in which we're heading. And again, with Belotti, you also have a guy who's versatile because he can play as your main striker, he can play alongside a main striker, and he's intelligent and hardworking, which is what Mourinho really values.
I don't think as a coach you can ever have too many options, and certainly if you've got 3 or 4 options up front, all guys who have shown they can score goals and put the ball in the back of the net, it's never a bad thing. The only question I would have over Belotti is, could he turn out to be a Forlan type who Although at Torino, there's no pressure on him. You can score plenty of goals, turn up every day and just enjoy yourself. It's a different ball game at United. That's kind of where he might slip up for me if he did go to Old Trafford.
Has he got the mentality, Gab?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously United are a much bigger club than Torino are, but again, you talk to most people, they say one of the great things about playing in the Premier League and is that, in some ways there is less pressure because you don't have the fans showing up to training, you don't have the fans, going and booing you the minute you make a mistake. They tend to be more patient. And I think Belotti's also shown that, he's done it while playing for Italy, which is obviously a higher standard perhaps than Torino. He's coped with it. What I'm just not sure about is that when you add these guys, and of course Martial is still in the mix, as is Rooney, who I guess they'll try to put somewhere. When you got that many star players who play the same position, it can be a little bit tricky getting them all on the pitch and keeping them all happy.
Speaking of trying to keep players happy, apparently Diego Costa, of course, and Antonio Conte were not happy with each other by the end of last season. Famously, Conte now sending Costa that text saying, "You don't need you next year." Looking at it, Gab, he's been linked to AC Milan, China, and then a move to Atletico Madrid. Where's Costa going next, do you feel?
I don't know. I think certainly AC Milan in many ways would be a very good fit. If they can shift Carlos Bacca, you're getting they've already spent some important money in adding the likes of Rodriguez and Kessie and Musacchio, and they're close to Lucas Biglia as well. The China option, I think, has waned at this stage in the sense that, there's capital controls in China. It's not as easy as it appeared before. Obviously, Atletico Madrid, there's a transfer ban right now. So I think landing at Milan could be a very good option for Diego Costa.
Stevie, it's the first time that we've had you on since all this Diego Costa stuff, of course, broke. What do you make? Are Chelsea going to regret this, letting Costa go?
Absolutely. Listen, when you have somebody in your team, he was the top scorer for Chelsea, remember? How can you just turn around and let your top scorer go?
Now, the boys yesterday were saying they could understand it if there was something going on that we didn't know too much about.
Listen,
about the relationship between Costa, the other players, and the management.
There's always something going on in every club. Not everybody gets on rosy with everybody. There's always people that dislike each other. But at the end of the day, it's about when you step on the field. And that's exactly what happened all season. So why would this change? We've been talking about this for more than just last season. Yeah. I think the big loser here is Chelsea. I mean, clearly defensively was one of the major things for them. But going forward, the connection between him and Hazard, I thought was absolutely fantastic. And arguably the main reason why they won the title. And you're just going to get rid of that on a text message as well. I don't believe that for a second.
Gavin?
So I think Antonio Conte's thinking here is as follows. Diego Costa obviously did a job for them last year. There were some issues because he is a bit of an unusual character. Not exactly the most disciplined with his forward movements that Conte really craves. And Conte really wants to get a Romelu Lukaku. I think it's an open secret. He wants a younger center forward, a guy who's prolific, a guy who's perhaps more traditional in the way he plays up front. And I think the concern was that, if Costa stays, he's going to want a new deal. You bring in Lukaku, you've got, the incumbent there. It could affect Lukaku in the way he plays because he's not going to be the main man. And I think Conte was thinking, look, I just want this guy out the door. And I think from the club's perspective, obviously, if you put a big for sale sign on somebody, you're going to get, perhaps you won't get fair market value. I'm not sure the club would have wanted Conte to go and send a text message. But from Conte's perspective, in doing this, I think he also feels that he's kind of, giving the club a kick in the backside to go and deliver Lukaku at this point because obviously Costa's gone.
Meanwhile, Gab, could Gareth Bale be receiving a text message from Florentino Perez over the next couple of weeks? Because suggestions in Spain are that the only way they can get Kylian Mbappe into Real Madrid is to get rid of Gareth Bale first.
Yeah, I don't understand the logic here. Maybe the people who are reporting this aren't the same people who are reporting that they're going to sell Morata. Because, look, even if you believe that Mbappe is going to go for 135 million euros, you're going to get 80 million euros back, if these reports are accurate, for Morata. That means you don't need to sell Bale to raise more money to sign him, right? You're Real Madrid. You're a cash cow. So I think it's maybe more an issue of playing time. But again, if Morata goes, Mbappe can fill that slot for a season. There's also a strong suggestion that maybe they're thinking of signing Mbappe and leaving him on loan in Monaco for a season. So, yeah, I don't know where Bale comes into this. If somebody shows up with a ton of money for Bale, I think they'll talk to them. But I certainly don't see them, going out and starting to peddle Bale around Europe.
This is the thing, though, now, isn't it? Gab mentioned that if someone does turn up with a lot of money for Gareth Bale, as opposed to recent seasons where Real Madrid wouldn't have even entertained the idea of talking about a possible move, there is a slight hint now that they would look at him going, and rightly so.
I wouldn't say rightly so. There seems to be. We kind of seem to have, over the last 6 months, all of a sudden this guy's become injury prone. He's been absolutely superb for Real Madrid for 80% of the time he's been there. And we can talk all we want about if a club wants him. I don't see any way that Gareth Bale leaves Real Madrid.
But I suppose here's the argument to that. Real Madrid just won the double without Gareth Bale. So why would you want to keep someone that expensive around when you could cash in now?
Well, there's a lot to be said for having a squad. And there's a lot to be said having a squad when your guys who are fighting for a place are sensational footballers. If you want to win La Liga, if you want to win the Champions League again, you need players like Gareth Bale. And there aren't many players in the world better than Gareth Bale. So why are you going to get rid of one of your main players? Because that's what he is.
James Rodriguez, meanwhile, wasn't even on the bench, was he, Gab, for the Champions League final? Where's he going to go?
I don't know, whoever will take him at this stage. And I'm not making fun of the guy, but certainly I think the last 12 months have really devalued what people are willing to spend on him. And you factor in his wages and the fact that Real Madrid, even just for prestige reasons, they can't just give him away, and your options are very limited. He's been linked to Paris Saint-Germain, which a lot of people see as like sort of the dumping ground. We had it with Di Maria as well. James's people have very good links with Paris Saint-Germain. I'm not sure PSG are gonna bite on this one, frankly. They have Draxler, they have Lucas, they're hoping to get Aubameyang. There's Cavani there. I don't see any great appetite from James there, to be honest.
What a transfer frenzy that was. Just a reminder, over on ESPNFC.com, Sid Lowe talking about the possibilities of Morata and James next season. World Cup qualifiers in Europe today, and how's the luck if you're Dutch? You win, and yet somehow you still manage to lose. They beat Luxembourg by 5-0, but Sweden, with a late winner against France, keep them top of Group A. They're level on points, 13 apiece. Stevie, this could be another big tournament without the Dutch.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be shocked. This is going to come down to the last game of the qualifiers. Sweden in Holland. When was the last time Holland turned up in a game they had to get a result? I don't remember the last time, to be honest with you, and I can't see how they do it again. You just can't rely on them.
Meanwhile, France were looking good against Sweden. Giroud scored a beauty. Obviously, Sweden get the equaliser. France are pushing then for that winner. And Hugo Lloris with an absolute gift. Toivonen with a superb finish.
Yeah.
Take nothing away from it. Well, but Lloris let an empty goal.
Listen, you've got to say the finish from Toivonen is incredible. It's, 45 yards out? How often do you see that? At the same time, how often do you see a world-class goalkeeper with a horrible clearance from outside his own box, straight to the opposition?
What's he thinking, Steve? He's obviously not.
He's not. He's only trying to clear it. I think what happens is he gets caught between trying to make a pass and just getting it out of there in the last minute of the game. I don't know how the translation goes, but we used to say, if in doubt, kick it out. That's what he should have done.
What's he like? What's he going to be like in the change room afterwards? What happens when a player does that so late on in a game?
Well, nobody really say anything. He'll be sat in the corner with his head down. He won't say a word. everybody will come around, give him a little tap and say, hey, don't worry about it. It's not going to make him feel any better. But listen, they're still equal top of the group.
Yeah.
They know that.
No,
they know that they're still favourites to go through. So that kind of takes the sting out of it, but not for your race, it doesn't.
He won't be getting any Christmas cards from the Dutch, Gab, that is for sure. But it was an incredible lapse of concentration right at the end.
Yeah, and from somebody where you don't expect it. I mean, obviously he's got a rep of somebody who's comfortable with his feet. I agree with Stevie. It looked as if he somehow mishit it because the ball goes towards the center of the pitch. If you are going to try to pass from that situation, you come that far out of your box. You normally taught to swing it out to wide areas, but I guess these things happen.
Meanwhile, in Group B, let's take you through the results there. Andorra with a victory, their first since 2004 in a competitive match, beating Hungary by 1-0. Faroe Islands 0, Switzerland 2, keeps the Swiss at the top of the group. Latvia 0, meanwhile, Portugal 3, Cristiano Ronaldo with a brace. Just can't help himself, can he? Meanwhile, in Group H, Bosnia-Herzegovina 0, Greece 0, Estonia 0, Belgium 2, keeping Roberto Martinez's side top of the group. And it was Gibraltar 1, Cyprus 2. Gibraltar looking to get their first point, but Cyprus with a late winner in that one. On Saturday, meanwhile, it's all about Scotland against England in Group F. England with a nice cushion, 4 points clear at the top of their, what is a dreadful qualifying group, let's be honest, Stevie. Scotland against England, of course. You've got a horse in this one, former Scottish international, went to the World Cup with Scotland. How do you feel? Your face isn't filling with me joy.
I would love to turn around and say that the Scottish crowd will get behind them at Hampden. Scotland will raise their game. England will be a little bit sheepish because of the ferocity of the Scottish support. But it's not going to happen. I mean, listen, 1 through 11, I don't think there's one Scottish player would get in the England 11. They've already lost 3-0 to England, 12 months ago. There just doesn't seem any way Scotland gets anything from this game. And the Scottish crowd will want Scotland to push forward.
Yes.
When to get something from this game, they would have to keep it tight. So I really just don't see how... I don't see how Scotland gets anything out of it.
Well, for more on this game, Michael Cox has been writing on ESPNFC.com about now that Rooney has left. It's all about the collective England side going forward. The future of Marco Verratti very much up in the air at the moment. This is what his agent had to say. There's the will of PSG to keep Verratti at all costs. Now it's clear money isn't enough. Appeal is also needed. And in the last 4 or 5 years, the French club haven't done enough to improve in that regard. Juventus are much more attractive because champions are attracted to winning teams. So, Gab, how much of a chance is there that Verratti could be at Juventus by the end of the summer?
Well, evidently, if his agent has his way, there's a 100% chance.
Sure.
I don't know. It's also funny. This agent he doesn't have. He's not a super agent. Verratti is kind of like his meal ticket client, and he's obviously very, very frank in the way he speaks. I think Juve would love to have Verratti. He'd be a great fit in that midfield. But I also don't think that they're going to go out and, and they're going to spend 50, 60 million. So either Verratti's prepared to effectively go to war and create some situation where he forces PSG to sell him, or I just don't see Juve pushing the boat out that far. A more logical thing to do would have been to perhaps to generate interest across Europe rather than come out and say, oh no, my client only wants to go to one place.
Yeah, I'm with Guy. I don't see this happening at all. Verratti's not the type of guy that's going to go and start creating. And PSG are trying to take another step. They're not going to get rid of one of the most important players. So I don't see this happening whatsoever.
Meanwhile, Gab, you talked earlier in the show about the possibility of Costa to Milan. Milan have been extremely busy, haven't they, in the off-season so far? But in reality, how much have they actually improved their side?
Oh, I think they've improved a lot. I really like, actually, what they're doing. I think, Frank Kessie in midfield is really just on the cusp of superstardom. Ricardo Rodriguez maybe had a bit of a down year last year, but 2 years ago he was a player everybody wanted. Musacchio is an upgrade certainly at the back. They need to sort out the center forward position. They're still pursuing Lucas Biglia in midfield, and they're also hoping to land Andrea Conti from Atalanta, who I think is one of the best fullbacks in Serie A. Not sure that they necessarily need him that much with the squad that they have, but I think it shows their ambition. Now, they got to make all this work and remain within the financial fair play framework, and that remains to be seen how well that's going to work out.
Of course, all this, Gab, is about trying to get back in the Champions League, but to do so, you've got to finish top three. You've got to finish ahead of either Juventus, Roma or Napoli. In reality, is that possible?
Actually, it's going to be top four in Serie A because of the new memorandum of understanding, and I think that becomes a lot more viable. And I think that's part of the reason why, they're also prepared to spend, even though, forget Juve, but even though Roma and Napoli, I think, are clearly a step ahead of them. They look around, they look at what Inter are doing or not doing, and then they look at Fiorentina losing Paulo Sousa, and they say, you know what? Fourth place is there for the taking. It's basically us and Lazio, and we're about to take Lazio's captain Lucas Biglia. So we're in a pretty good position for that.
How could I have forgotten the memorandum of understanding, Stevie? Schoolboy error. There are quite a lot of free transfers available in the Prem. We've rated the top 10, which of course include a certain Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Welcome to Extra Time. Look at Stevie, just boiling with excitement about Scotland-England this weekend.
Oh, listen to you Sassenach.
Oh dear, what does that mean?
It means English and Scottish.
But it's not a very nice thing, is it?
No, it's not.
No, well, yes.
It's not.
If you were the French manager, what would you say to Hugo Lloris after that howler? Yeah, would you say anything, Stevie?
Yeah, the only thing you, as a coach, and particularly the French coach, considering you're still top of the group, or equal top of the group, is you just put your hand around them and say, look, one of those things, came from nowhere, don't do it again, but hey, move on.
As you say, it may help in that France obviously will still qualify. But what about when you were coaching the Revs, and something like that would be detrimental to the team's progress in the competition or their position in the league? Do you really treat it differently?
Not really. It doesn't change. You know the player is devastated enough without everybody piling on, because piling on is only going to make it worse. If it could be worse for the player. So most people will just give him a little tap and say, hey, don't worry about it.
All right then, Gab, all the Manchester United rumours are about players coming in. What about who's being shown the door?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much an open secret that there's a number of guys who Mourinho wouldn't mind seeing the back of, or who, they have to make decisions on. A guy like Juan Mata, for example, he's a great servant to the club, but he's got a year left on his contract. He's on a big wage. If you're going to have Rashford and maybe Morata and maybe Belotti coming in, and you have Mkhitaryan, at some point you have to make decisions. So you either extend Mata or you deal him now when you can deal him with a year left and get something back. Another one who I think would have a decent transfer valuation and his future might be not so clear is Anthony Martial. Again, depends what players they actually bring in. But you can still get, a decent fee for Martial at this stage. But if he spends another year, not playing very much, then that could change. Obviously, at the back, Jones, Smalling, Shaw, all three guys have been criticized at different times for different reasons by Mourinho. I'd be really surprised if all three were still there next season.
Staying with you, Gab, does Aubameyang to PSG push Cavani out?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, Cavani scored a ton of goals last year. It's not as if, there's an issue with him. I think the plan is actually either to figure out how you're going to play a front two, maybe with somebody in behind, or possibly go back to playing Aubameyang on the wing, where of course is where he's often played and where he's been very prolific before. I mean, Cavani and Aubameyang, front twos are back very much back in vogue, I think. So I think they're really excited by that option.
Finally, Stephen, imagine yourself for a moment you're Alexis Sanchez.
Hold on. Right.
Okay,
Right.
you do that?
See?
Yeah, see, good. Anything else? No, don't say it.
I don't speak English.
Bayern or City? And why? Who would you choose if it was simply that?
I think I would go for Bayern. I think he's at the stage of his career where over the next 2 or 3 years it has to be success.
Yeah.
Then he's going to start going over the hill. And I think Bayern are just a little bit further ahead than City are. You probably know you're going to win the Bundesliga. You certainly know you're going to get to through the qualifying stages of the Champions League. So, you know, with him having quite a small window for achieving the success that he wants, I would choose Bayern.
It has been quite a week, of course, for Virgil van Dijk, who's really lit up the Premier League since making that move from the Premiership. Liverpool, we know, Gab, came out and apologised for the whole tapping up thing. But is it really over? Is there any chance maybe they could go back in for the centre-back?
I mean, I think if you're Southampton, if you get the price you want, you probably don't really care where Virgil van Dijk goes or where you sell him to. But I think the whole reason was that Liverpool perhaps took this approach, for which they apologized, was that they hoped that you know, it would help them get Van Dijk effectively at a discount, you know, compared to what Chelsea or City might pay. I think that prerogative is now out the window, and I think it's going to be really, really difficult for them to get back into it.
Steve, what have you made of all of this?
Well, I think it worked with Lovren. Obviously, they must have did the same thing with Lovren. He was prepared to upset everybody else and get the move he wanted. This time it looks completely different. And to be quite honest with you, at 60 million, I think he's way overpriced. So I'm disappointed he hasn't signed.
Yeah.
But for that price, yeah, I'm not quite as disappointed as I may be.
All right, then. And thank you very much, Stevie. Enjoy Scotland-England. I know you're really looking forward to it. It should be
I hope
good.
the alarm doesn't go off.
Thanks to Gab as well. Until next time. Goodbye.